Let me just introduce to those of you who may not know what our organization, Nebraska World Affairs Council is, and then I'll go ahead and introduce Chris and Brianna. So my name is Michael Adams. I'm president of the Nebraska World Affairs Council, which we affectionately call NUAC. I'm happy to welcome all of you to today's webinar, and I think you're going to find it fascinating, especially the teachers on the call. The Nebraska World Affairs Council's roots go back to 1972, and we're definitely looking forward to our 50th anniversary next year. We are a nonpartisan, nonprofit membership organization, and our mission is to provide educational programs and engagement opportunities, together with several partners, to the three targeted sectors that we focus on, namely students, young professionals, and community leaders, with the hope that they can become confident, informed global citizens in this very complex and interconnected world that we all live in. We encourage citizen-to-citizen diplomacy as a way to promote peace and mutual respect so that all of us may thrive. So why does Nebraska care about world affairs? Well, annual surveys sent home with school children indicate that there are over 120 languages spoken in the home of Nebraska students, not in one home, but in all of the homes. So in terms of population, Nebraska ranks 37th in the US, but actually ranks first, second, third, or fourth in a number of export categories. Exports, in fact, provide 62,000 jobs here and represent 9% of the state's economy. So as this international thing is pretty important here. Programs at NUAC cover a wide range of world affairs topics, including things like food security, conflict resolution, climate change, U.S. foreign policy, of course, human rights, international trade, cultural heritage, and international education. There are many, many other topics, but that'll give you an idea. So I invite all of you to follow us on Facebook to learn more about our programs and events. And global citizens are needed here, so please consider joining us. So that's who NUAC is. And I'll give an introduction of Christopher Ahearn and his colleague, Brianna. So Chris is a former classroom teacher. He oversees programming for Reach the World, a nonprofit organization that helps educators provide engaging and immersive international learning experiences for their students. He cultivates communities of teachers nationwide to bring the world into classrooms, and now from their homes, of course. Reach the World's nationwide network of educators, volunteer travelers, and volunteers are building a more thoughtful and welcoming society. They do this by sharing eye-opening benefits of international travel, geography, and cultural experiences with the youth of today. And these are the people that will be decision makers tomorrow. Research shows that students exposed to geography and culture at an early age tend to perform better in all their later years in school. That's amazing. That's like the secret sauce. So we're going to find out what's behind that belief. Each year, Reach the World connects hundreds of volunteer travelers with hundreds of classrooms in one-on-one global digital exchanges. So in any one year, there might be 100 or 200 of these exchanges going on. It's a very extensive, impressive program. Since 2009, Reach the World has served more than 30,000 youths, 3,600 travelers, and 1,000 volunteers. Together, their community has created more than 20,000 primary source travel stories, chronicling daily life around the globe. Christopher himself is a National Geographic certified educator and holds a BA from St. Anselm College, or as we like to say, St. A's, and has an MEd degree from Franklin Pierce University. He has consulted with a wide variety of nonprofits, improving their ability to define and achieve their strategic goals. Reach the World also inspires youth to become curious, confident, and compassionate global citizens. That's a big challenge and very beneficial. This process is enabled by their virtual exchange programs, which we'll hear about today, classrooms and volunteer travelers as they explore the world together. Christopher likes to ask the question, does exposure to geography, culture, and adventure at an early age motivate students to perform better in all of their later years in school? So we'll find out if this is indeed the secret sauce we've all been struggling to find over the years in terms of motivating students. So with that, I will turn it over to Christopher, and welcome to everybody on the call.
Thank you. Thank you so much. What an introduction. I am so thrilled to be able to speak with you all today. Some of you I know, and some of you I don't. I'm also really lucky to have my colleague, Brianna Rowe, with me. She'll be speaking a little bit later on, but very, very briefly, while I handle a lot of our programming work, Brianna is also our director of business development. And so she helps make sure that we get the funding that we need and the financial support to continue to do our work. And we are lucky with our small team here in New York and throughout the country to provide as many opportunities as possible to students both in Nebraska and beyond. And so I'm going to share my screen in a moment and begin speaking about the work that we do. But before I do want to briefly mention that we do a lot of different things. And I know we have at least one teacher on this call who knows better than most about what those things are. But what I'm going to be speaking to you all today is a little bit more specifically on our Explorer program, which is in some ways sort of one of the older versions of what we do, but also something that's very new and a source of a lot of innovation for us. Now, what I like to do with a lot of my presentations is allow you to follow along with me. And so anyone who'd like to can actually use that link that's hopefully now on your screens. That is the bit.do/RTW Explore. That will actually give you access to the whole thing. And so if you want to have extra information or you miss something while I'm speaking, this is a good way for you to follow along on your own. So just this is a little bit redundant after that amazing introduction from you, Michael, but our mission is to make the benefits of travel accessible to classrooms and inspire students to become curious, confident, and compassionate global citizens. And enabled by our digital platform, classrooms and volunteer travelers explore the world together. And our vision is to build a pipeline of globally competent students and educators who will both succeed in and steward the 21st century global community. And listening to the mission and vision and the work of NUOC, it's just so uplifting to me as a former educator and as a nonprofit professional and someone who's deeply committed to this work to see and hear how many great brother and sister organizations that we have both in Nebraska and throughout the world. Now, we are a virtual exchange organization, and I would like to put up this definition of what virtual exchange is, because it's one of those terms that can be a little bit confusing to some and completely just confounding to others. But virtual exchanges are technology-enabled, sustained people-to-people education programs. They look very different all over the place, and there's a whole host of ways that students can embark on virtual exchanges. And the way that we do it is that we tap into this amazing, vibrant network of travelers and explorers who are studying abroad in Madrid, Spain. They're first in their family to study abroad and sharing those experiences with a Spanish classroom in Omaha. Or they're a Fulbright grantee who is doing research in Beijing and studying snow leopards, going out into the field every few months to collect information, and then sharing those experiences on a weekly basis with the classroom in New Jersey. And those aren't hypotheticals, those are actually really things that we've done in the past couple of years. But we also work with explorers, and so you can see two of our incredible explorers and expeditions on the screen right now. One of them being Holly Ewert, who was an explorer with us from the Weddell Sea expedition, as well as you can see just in the background of that shot, the lights from the RV Polar Stern, which was a part of the Mosaic expedition, which actually just concluded only a couple of months ago. but we take those stories and those experiences as they happen, and we turn them into amazing classroom content for young learners. And it's just such amazing and uplifting work to take these stories and these experiences, successes and failures and things that are exciting and fascinating to these people, and turn them into opportunities for learning for classrooms, from art to social studies to science to a morning meeting. Any way that we can inject global learning into classrooms, we will work with those teachers to make that happen. Now, like I said, I wanted to speak with you all today about the Explorer program. Now, our Explorer program is something that we have actually been evolving and innovating every single day since really March of last year, when the COVID-19 pandemic forced us all back into our homes and has really challenged a lot of lives of both young learners and their educators, not to mention their families. And so to really meet teachers and students and classrooms where they are, we now offer 3 different versions of our Explorer program, or in other words, 3 different ways that people can actually connect with people who are doing research on kangaroos in Australia, studying climate change through soil in the northern peatlands of Ontario, or harvesting the blood nail from terrestrial leeches in the lost forests of Madagascar, and providing opportunities for students to learn from those. And so we offer live expeditions, on-demand expeditions, and virtual field trips. Also, for those of you who are following along, this is actually hyperlinked, so you can go right to that page that I've screenshotted there. Now, live expeditions are a little bit self-explanatory in that these are opportunities to connect with our explorers who are recounting their expeditions on a weekly basis. So the 2 expeditions that we have happening right now are Carlos's expedition to the Northern Peatlands and Charlie's expedition to Australia. Now, both of these explorers, unfortunately, and probably unsurprisingly, are not in the field at this very moment. But on a weekly basis, they are creating content on the Reach the World website. That's www.reachtheworld.org. And also participating in video calls with classrooms. And you'll actually see in a few slides that Carlos's expedition has their very first video call tomorrow. So this is an early opportunity for you all to register to listen to Carlos talk about his amazing work looking at what climate change is doing to the boreal forests and the areas of both the northern peatlands in Ontario, as well as here in the central and northern parts of the United States. Charlie's expedition to Australia, he's actually a researcher who has an expertise in gray kangaroos. So he actually spends time once a year going to Eastern Australia, just outside of Melbourne, where he tags and does research on their habitats, and observing what it is that they're doing, as well as the rest of those ecosystems where not only kangaroos, but the other parts of the other species in that area will need to survive and interact with one another. So those expeditions are actually happening right now. Every week they're creating new articles about their experiences, what it's like to travel to different countries, and really putting students in their shoes so that the students can fully experience what it's like to be an explorer, to be a researcher, as well as understand how they got there. I actually found out on Charlie's first live stream that he's actually a former semi-professional hockey player and played at a fairly elite level in Canada, where I'm sure you all know hockey is a pretty big deal. But it was even though he wanted to fulfill his dream of becoming a professional hockey player, he actually was inspired after going on a field expedition with a professor in college, and said, this is my drive. For those of you who are teachers on the call, I can imagine that probably sounds like a few students that you probably have right now. And so these live expeditions are really great opportunities to really capture that energy and excitement of what it's like to work with these explorers on a regular basis. Now, we also have on-demand expeditions. So when Charlie and Carlos, for example, complete their expeditions and their 6 or so weeks of content has come to a close and they say goodbye to their classrooms, we actually take their amazing journeys and all of the articles that they've written. This is another example called the Mosaic Expedition. And we take all that information and on our programs team, we then synthesize it and then transform it into an outline that teachers can access on demand whenever they want and integrate what the expeditions have to offer with whatever they're teaching. So we have it just like you see here. We have it structured so that every week there's 1 to 2 pieces of written content for the students to read. And then there's sample activities and extension opportunities. So teachers have all of this at their fingertips so that those of you who are curriculum designers like I was when I was in the classroom, you can take this and just very easily layer it into whatever your students are learning. So they still have that excitement of being able to engage with an explorer, but it's a little bit more on your terms. We also take our expeditions and our explorers and we connect them with classrooms through what we call virtual field trips. Now, what that means is that your students can also connect with explorers, just like Lynn here. This is actually taken yesterday. And these explorers will share some of their experiences from the field. In the case of Lynn, she's an expert on elephant behavior, and she does research on how elephants and humans can coexist side by side without elephants stealing food from local farmers or otherwise sort of running through and trampling the man-made structures that abut a lot of the national parks and other areas, protected areas where elephants tend to live. So in virtual field trips, it's a smaller condensed opportunity, an event for your students to get really interested and excited about a particular topic or subtopic that the explorer has expertise in. In this case, we actually connected 300 students in 26 classrooms to Lynn's expedition. And we layered in polls and lots of pictures and video so the students really felt and understood what it was like to go into the field and figure out how do we protect elephants from humans and vice versa. We also have like I said, we conduct all sorts of events with Reach the World. And tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern, we have our very first live stream with Carlos Barreto, and you'll be able to hear right from him about what he's doing to study climate change in the peatlands of Northern Ontario. We also do a series of all sorts of other opportunities that we tend to call Meet the World. So opportunities to explore different parts of the world through people who actually live there and are really excited and engaged to want to share their experiences of their home countries with us here in the US. So in the case of what we're doing on February 3rd, we actually have Elizabeth Mutunga, who is actually a recipient of the Fulbright Foreign Language Teaching Assistant Grant, who's going to talk with us and some students about what it's like to live in Nairobi. And I know that was really fast, but I wanted to leave you with this. If you want to learn more about the structure of the program, some of the things that we do, here are all the links that you can use. So the best one to do to save is right here, that bit.do/RTW Explore. You can click here to learn about explorers and expeditions, the events, and then the last one there is for you to sign up on your own whenever you want to. We would love to take you on an expedition as soon as tomorrow or towards the end of the school year. Whenever you want to bring the world into your classroom, we would love to be able to do that. And so I'm going to pause there because I want to introduce someone that I briefly introduced at the beginning of my presentation, my colleague Brianna Rowe. I mentioned that she was our Director of Business Development and does a lot of great work on the fundraising side and bringing in companies and foundations to see some of the amazing work that that we do in partnership with organizations like NUOC, and I would be remiss if I also didn't mention the Malika Foundation, which has been supporting K-12 classrooms on global education in Nebraska for years and years. But my colleague Brianna, in addition to those amazing things, she's also an explorer. And so I wanted to turn it over to her so you all can understand what it's like for you to imagine to be students and actually connect with an explorer in the field sharing those experiences. So Brianna?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. It's great to see everyone's faces, and I'm guessing everyone here is in Nebraska. Are we the only ones calling in from outside of Nebraska? Maybe. Well, I guess I'm actually calling in from Canada, which is where I am originally from. And I grew up as a Canadian and also an American citizen. And that it always made me really curious about my identity. And I really identify as a global citizen. And there were lots of things that got me there. And now I actually have this career with Reach the World and with connecting back with classrooms and teaching them about global issues, research, science, exploration, cultures, and international affairs around the world. It's a pretty cool job. I absolutely love it. I'm going to actually add a video background from one of my expeditions. So if you want to multitask, you can actually multitask and watch the video behind me. This is from an expedition in Cambodia where we took these tiny rafts down the Mekong River. There's the sunken forest. And we connected back with classrooms while we were on this incredible trek. I brought my laptop inside of a waterproof bag and took it down the Mekong River in order to connect back with kids live so that they can ask questions, they can participate, and they could feel like they were joining the journey with me. We actually, I think you just missed it, but there was a dolphin there's only 100 of these dolphins left in the entire world in this section of the Mekong River. And all of these really unique and interesting things students actually got to be a part of. So I will let this video run a little bit, and then I'm going to play an actual video that's just clips and segments from our expeditions. We host most of these events on YouTube, and students can watch, whole classrooms can participate. We do one-on-one. Chris really outlined it for you there. There's a lot of different programs that we have going on. But if you want an explorer for your classroom, I'm going to give you a taste of what it looks like now. So the video is about 7 minutes long, and then we can come back for Q&A.
This is a special hangout. We have one of our satellite BGAN units in the field in Colombia. We're connecting with Brianna Rowe and Pete Rowe, who are on an expedition documenting the Cano Cristales River deep in the jungle of Colombia. So I'm not going to say much more. This is an Explorers Club flag expedition. And we weren't sure if we were going to be able to pull it off, but we've got the signal and we're good to go. So Brianna, how you doing?
Hi, Joe. Thanks so much. Welcome, guys. We're in the middle of Colombia's jungle here at Cano Cristal. And this, as you can see, is a river that turns red. And the reason it turns red is because there is a plant that grows here that doesn't grow anywhere else in the world. It's called Macarena. And it's a red plant that is very unique to this area. And look at the views here of this red river. So I'm on an expedition right now with my dad, who's an explorer, and he's a filmmaker and photographer, and he's been exploring adventurous spots all over the world his entire life, and he's creating a book called Red Planet. So he's gone all over the world to find different red parts of the world, and this site was a really important one for us to get to. It was really important for the Red Planet because take a look, it's a completely red river. Now, the way we got here was incredibly difficult. I'm from New York City. My dad's from Toronto. We flew down to Bogota, which is the big city in Colombia. Now, it is just as big as New York City. There's a lot of people there, lots of buildings, traffic, roads. But from there, we took a tiny propeller plane. Only 19 people could be in this small plane, crossed across the jungle down into the Amazon to visit a small town. And from there, we took a little boat up the river. From the boat, we took a 4x4 down in through the jungle. And then we've been hiking all morning. We started hiking around 9 o'clock in the morning.
Hi, everybody. So great for all of you to join us. Thank you so much for coming to Cambodia this morning for you. But as you can tell, it's pretty dark out. We are actually 12 hours into the future. It is Thursday night at 9:30 p.m. here in Cambodia. That's why it's pretty dark out. Also, we are in the middle of a turtle conservation center, which is in the middle of a temple in a town called Sambor, which is just off the Mekong River. Okay, so this is going to be the really fun part. We're going to see the baby turtles.
Oh, we're going to see a medium one first.
Oh, we're going to see the medium-sized turtle. I think it's still a baby turtle because they get very giant.
And this turtle is 1 year old.
Let's see, so
Is that right?
can you, yeah? Oh, so, yeah, you guys can
So,
see.
As you're looking,
It's
you
so
might
hard
see
to find.
just sand, and then the turtle appears.
For how many years was the soft-shelled turtle thought to be extinct?
Great question. How many years did we not see the turtle? Before 2007.
But for me, I think about before 20 years ago, I always see them when I have younger, see them in the nature. After 10 years, doesn't see them until between 2000 until 2007. We know the conservation project research that species.
And that's similar to what the villagers told us also. So about 10 years or so, 7 to 10 years is when they did not see them.
And this is kind of why research is so cool and why we need more research, because we don't really know the answer to that question. And the only way to find out is to ask people what they saw and what they know, people who live around here. And that's how you guys collect a lot of the data, and how we've been collecting data along the river, and we're going to share that data with the Wildlife Conservation Society. And that will go into a bigger pool of knowledge for us to be able to better answer those questions. Because even if you look up the turtle online, there's not a lot of answers about this specific turtle, because there's not a lot of research on it.
We have a student here who actually, we have a few students that grew up in Cambodia. And so we have Sukita, who's going to come and ask a question. She's going to try to remember as much of Khmer as she can. So come. Can they see you?
So, not yet. Why not going to talk in Cambodia?
Yeah.
So, ប្រហែលឆ្នាំតើសត្វធរនឹងវានៅរស់ Yeah.
We're going to spend all day here, actually. You can spend weeks here because there's more than just this one temple. There's an entire complex of temples behind me. And so we're going to go explore this throughout the entire day. And we're so excited that you guys were able to join us and you were able to see it. I'm here right now at the Explorers Club. So you can kind of see it's really dark in here, and you can see these things behind me. These are Explorers Club flags. Now, the Explorers Club is a big mansion in the Upper East Side of New York City. You can kind of hear some sirens going outside here in New York City.
And the first thing that you do as an Explorers Club member and you're planning an expedition is you can apply to take one of these flags on your expedition. And there are just under 200 flags that are in circulation that you can apply to take on an expedition. And these flags have a rich history because some of them have gone to the top of Mariana, or the top of Mount Everest and the bottom of Mariana's Trench, the highest part in the world and the lowest part in the world. So when you carry a flag, you're not only bringing a piece of the Explorers Club, but you're bringing a piece of history of exploration on your expedition.
Countries have you traveled to?
That's a good question. I used to count, and I kind of stopped counting. I haven't actually been to that many. There's a lot of countries out there. And usually when I go and do research somewhere, I stay in one area for a long time in order to get to know it better. So I think probably about 40 countries. And some of them you're just flying through and you're only there for a day. So I don't think they really count. But I've been on probably about 15 expeditions where the goal has not just been to travel, the goal has been to collect information and distribute it.
All right, there it is. So there's some clips just from my different calls with students and some of the questions that they ask, which is the best part of the entire thing because they have so many questions and they can really start to see themselves on a path towards science, exploration, travel, discovery. And that's really what inspires me. And we hope that you guys will all join us and learn more about Reach the World and what we do. And we'd be happy to collaborate in the future. So if there's any questions or if Chris, you want to jump in here as well, I think you can speak more to the classroom side of things.
Yeah, I mean, no, this would be a great time. If anyone has any questions, any thoughts, we would love to hear from you all. We've been speaking for a little while, so now's a chance to hear from you.
Well, I can kick it off, Chris. So, and Brianna, how do the villagers prevent elephants from eating and trampling their crops?
That is a really, it's a really interesting, it's really interesting to hear what they're doing. So the area where Lynn in particular, the explorer that we connected, it is not an area that has regular access to electricity. And so in some of the larger parks and areas, they're able to electrify fences so that, especially in South Africa, the elephants, just enough to kind of give them a little bit of a buzz, and then they know not to go that way. But without access to electricity, there needs to be other options for them. And so one of the things that Lynn's research team is looking at, they're looking at a combination of one or more of the following. They plant spicy peppers. Elephants hate spicy foods. They use they actually build fences that include beehives because elephants hate bees. And they also add these really amazing things to their fences that basically they're almost like wind chimes. So when the wind blows through them, it creates this loud ringing noise, and the elephants do not like that sound. And so they're also researching other things, and they're trying to collect evidence to see what are the best options that are humane, that require little to no power, that allow the local villagers to raise enough crops, since most of those villagers are actually subsistence farmers, meaning they eat what they grow. They're not really selling it. So it's really important that they can actually get this stuff out of the ground before the elephants get it.
Thank you. That's fascinating. Let's see. Brianna, how does it work if you're taking a kayak trip down the Mekong River and you cross a border? Are there border guards? Do you pull in and go through passport check and so on?
That's a great question. Definitely not between the border between Laos and Cambodia. That's where we started. We started in Laos, and you could boat right on through between the two countries. And actually, to go back to elephants, it's been a really big problem because a lot of African elephants are killed for their ivory. It gets exported to Hong Kong, and from there it gets distributed between borders in Southeast Asia, and especially in Laos, Thailand, Cambodia. And we noticed there was a lot of talks around ivory trade there. But what's funny, or sort of a strange coincidence, is that they revere the actual Asian elephants that live in the forests in Laos and live in the forests in Thailand, but the ivory tusks are coming from Africa. So that's something we learned while we were there.
Thank you. Alicia, would you be able to make some comments about your experience with the program in your classroom?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think I can do it better than Chris and Brianna, but I will just say, if you are interested as an educator in doing Reach the World, there's several individuals across the state that have loved it. It's been amazing for not only my students, but their parents, because they go home and talk about what they learn. And it really opens dialogues about all kinds of topics. I was actually just writing a comment right now. I said, well, I don't love hearing about the ivory trade. It's fascinating how many international connections there are and how much, multifaceted cultural information students or even us as adult learners can gain from such a presentation. So, and also I have to put in a plug for the Malika Foundation. We do offer scholarships. So if there are any educators that are interested in that, please contact us at themalikafoundation.org. I can put that link in the chat too.
I do really want to quickly mention that Brianna and I, while I'm based here in New York City and Brianna is currently based in Toronto, we've both spent a not insignificant amount of time in Nebraska and really traveling around. We weren't just kind of bopping into Omaha and bopping out. I've been lucky enough to work with the Malika Foundation's founder, Natalie Hahn, and visit her home in Central City. Thanks to Alicia, I've also been lucky to present at the Nebraska International Language Association twice, most recently online, but before that I made the drive out to Kearney, and so was able to get a decent view of the state, I think, at least as an outsider, that's how I felt. And Brianna, I don't know if you want to speak about your experiences, because you've covered a fair amount of the state too.
I love going to Nebraska. The first time I went was with Reach the World, and it was mostly in Omaha. Saw Alicia, and then I'm looking at my map right now because we just drove for a little while. Was it near Beatrice, Chris?
Yeah, it was in Beatrice because you were with Kelly's students.
Yeah. I love Nebraska, love the people in Nebraska. It's always fun. So we hope to be back for sure.
And I will add, that's one amazing thing about Chris and actually everyone at Reach the World, because you're really not left alone as an educator. You have a lot of support once you join the program. So I think it can seem daunting, but honestly, there's so many educators that are doing it across the state, and then you have their support really at an individual level, which I think is fascinating because you serve so many classrooms and educators.
Thank you. And just one additional thing, the way that Reach the World expands partnerships and deepens programmatic opportunities is what we do is create what we call ecosystems of global competence. And so, of course, New York City is an ecosystem. We've been working here since 1998. And for the last 5 years, we've been identifying organizations, K-12 partners, other local institutions, private funders, et cetera, to begin to create ecosystems of global competence around the country. And Nebraska is one. And it's thanks to the support of the Malika Foundation, thanks to the support of NUOC and other K-12 partners and the Nebraska Department of Education for making that happen. And I think it speaks to a lot of what you said at the beginning, Michael, about the fact that Nebraska has a significant responsibility in terms of trade. And also because of the multiculturalism that does exist there. Just really briefly, it reminds me of a teacher that we've been working with for about 4 years now. And he teaches middle school in Lexington. And his student population is pretty high. It's a pretty high Latino population. And so when we were figuring things out at the beginning of this year, what would be really exciting for his students, he told me that. And so we found a traveler who was a first-gen college student, first-gen American, Mexican-American. And she actually studied abroad in France. And so she was able to share her experiences as someone who, like them, was someone who was straddling 2 countries and 2 cultures, and still made it abroad and studied abroad and was able to share those experiences while learning a different language that is somewhat related but still different to that. And how amazing of an inspiration it is for those students to have a near age role model like her to be able to look up to. And those are the opportunities that we can provide, and that we can, especially when we can work with teachers who say, hey, this is an element of my student population. This is a thing that I'm teaching. What can you do to make that come alive? We will figure out a way, trust me.
Chris, can I add to that? I just want to reiterate, I've taught, everything from college level courses to AP Spanish, and I've given a traveler my AP Spanish vocab list, and they've gone out in the field and taught my students vocab with a camera. It's so amazing what you can do working with them. So I just have to say thank you to you both for all the opportunities you've given educators throughout the state. There's so many stories about individuals and even parents and communities that get excited because their students come home and talk to them about what they learned through your program.
That's fascinating. Have any of you followed up with students later on to see if you somehow sparked a curiosity gene and they continued wanting to know more about international culture?
Brianna, do you want to tell that story?
PS 218, which one are we talking about here? One of the things that Reach the World does is work with school partners for long periods of time. And when Chris and I were, I think a couple years ago, we were working with a school in the Bronx in New York City. And we always work with a teacher who runs 5th grade courses for her Reach the World students. And every 5th grader knows that when they enter Reach the World, or when they enter 5th grade, they are going to get Reach the World as part of their English learning class. And about, about 5 years later, one of the students was actually helping the after school program, and she interacted with us and said, hey, I remember Reach the World. Not only do I remember Reach the World inspired me to apply to go to college and take a photography minor course so that I can go to France and study abroad with my minor and get to study abroad like my traveler 5 years ago. So it was an incredible story that we followed up with. And I've actually heard Alicia talk a little bit about some of her students who've been inspired to do Fulbright programs or apply for these programs that we're exposing students to that will help them send them abroad and pay for their scholarships and whatnot.
Yeah, I would honestly say that it's a very significant impact on students, even as soon as middle school. We found in some pilot programs that we've done that's really impacted not only the scholarships and programs they're looking at for secondary and post-secondary, but it's also had students and parents having conversations about what a Fulbright even is, or how do you get a Gilman scholarship and things like that to continue travel. So it's really powerful, and I just can't thank you enough for coming to Nebraska and making sure that we have all of these opportunities.
So
Actually, just sorry.
Go ahead.
I just actually put a link. When we heard Kelsey's story, we actually put it together in a 2-minute video. So I just put that in the chat for anyone to take a look at later on. But it captures everything that we were just talking about. What we want is for students to study abroad and to take experiences abroad, especially while in college. And speaking as a K-12 educator, as someone with a master's of education, someone who has dedicated their career to education, the data exists, and the data says that students who study abroad, students who travel during college, they are far more likely than their counterparts, even no matter what their backgrounds are, no matter what their demographics are, they're far more likely than their counterparts to graduate in 4 years. That is huge. And I know we have people from some of Nebraska's amazing universities on this call, but that's what we want to do. By showing that students can follow in these travelers and explorers' footsteps to go abroad, we know that they will make it to college and make it through college. And then as they're studying abroad, they can pay it forward and come back and reach the next generation through programs like ours. And it becomes a virtuous cycle. And that's what we want. And to allow those global opportunities to continue to exist now and into the future.
One question I have is, in your explorations, have you had the opportunity to look at the issue of housing quality and housing availability, especially for underprivileged and people in some of the developing countries that you've been to?
Yeah, definitely. I actually studied international development in East Africa, and we looked a lot at housing insecurity, both in urban and rural areas, and then the change from the changes that are happening right now with rural urban migrations. And Reach the World, actually, with all of our travelers, we have an article for them, and we assign them this task of figuring out what we call a communities field note. And it asks the question, what is the major problem in the community that you're traveling to? And what are some of the ways that we are addressing this issue, or how should we be addressing this issue? So Chris and I have read thousands of articles about all of these different issues around the world in different countries, really hyper focused on specific local issues to rural areas of Ghana, to housing insecurity in Hong Kong. And through these sort of kid-friendly articles, we actually have such a database of news about what these issues are and how they're being addressed.
Wow.
And what's really cool is a teacher can ask their traveler to write something very specific. I know 3rd grade, New York City Department of Education, all the students learn about housing, and then they compare and contrast with their traveler about what are the different types of houses in whatever country they're studying. And that way they can learn more about themselves while also learning about another place.
Oh, that's fascinating. We can use some of that data here in the U.S., where we have a big problem with homelessness, unaffordable housing, and so on.
Yeah, that's what I really love seeing in students is the compare and contrast, and realizing that we all have similar problems, or maybe we can learn from other areas of the world and apply those solutions to our own issues. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
Maybe I'll close out with one more story, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I want to share my screen here, or I'll do a virtual background again and see if we can take a look at what is going on in this photo. So this was in Cambodia, and I told you all how we were paddling down the river, and I showed a clip from the video call we did in Sambor. And what ended up happening is we paddled up, we saw this gorgeous temple. And when we went into the temple during the day, there was a small turtle sanctuary within that temple. And it was an incredible sight. And we were so excited because we thought, oh, we are going to connect with kids tonight. And that way we can get those kids during the day. So we sort of worked out the time zones, and it would have been a good time to do it at 9 p.m. at night, Cambodia time, which was around 9 a.m. Eastern. And what ended up happening was that the monks told us that the whole place was closed. So we actually had to spend the whole day going around this small town of Sambor and finding the different monks to request access to the turtle sanctuary at night. It was like the coolest experience I have ever gone through. We didn't really know where we were going. We're going from all different parts of this small town. People were driving us around in their little motorbikes. And finally, at 9 p.m., they led us into the site, and it was actually a monastery for monks. And all of these boys came out while we were doing this video call, and you can see one there in the photo behind me. And you can see our team there video calling and connecting back with classrooms. And what was so special for me was there was a classroom in Hamilton, Ontario that had a lot of Cambodian students whose parents were refugees or the first generation Cambodian students. There was a big community there in Hamilton, Ontario. And these young boys got to connect with these monks who were joining us on the video call, and they actually spoke Khmer for the first time. The boys in Hamilton, Ontario had never been to Cambodia, and they got to go virtually with us, and they got to connect with other young boys who were studying to become monks. So it was a very special experience, and I'm glad that I got to share it with you all.
Wow. That's amazing. This has been very exciting. I want to thank Chris and Brianna for an outstanding presentation. We've actually recorded it, and we will put it up on our YouTube site in the next couple of days. So we invite you to tune back in for some of our upcoming Zoom webinars. The next one is going to be on the 8th of February, and that's going to be an examination of the International Sister Cities Organization and how it helps to foster citizen diplomacy on February 8th. So thanks again, everybody, and we hope to see you again at another one of these events. And thanks very much, Chris and Brianna and Alicia as well.
Yeah, thank
you
for having us.